Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's largest platform for entrepreneurs. I'm Sunanda Jayasheelan. On the show tonight, highlights of the panel discussion we've done as part of our roadshow series, where we travel across the length and breadth of the country to connect better with entrepreneurs like yourself. Tonight, highlights of panel discussion that we did in Mumbai, talking about how the city is shifting from being a financial to a fintech hub. Take a listen to highlights of that panel. Priti, I want to come to you first to get the ball rolling. Mumbai is changing when it comes to the action in the fintech space. You definitely are proof of that with your own startup. Is it changing though, perhaps as much as you would expect it to? You know, give us really a picture, if I could ask you to do that, of what is happening as far as fintech innovation is concerned. And in fact, if you could introduce your own startup to the audience for those who might not be aware.
Great. So I'm Priti. I come with 2 decades of traditional financial services, a firm called AnandRathi. A couple of years back, I stepped out to start up something known as LXME, which is a financial planning platform only for women. The reason I did that are obvious. There was just a huge gap that nobody was servicing. So that is what I do. So Nanda, to your question, I think Navin may be better equipped to give you the numbers, but I think from what I see from the perspective of a startup founder, I realize that while Mumbai is the financial capital of the country, in terms of domain expertise, domain knowledge, we are very, very rich, right? That's where all our regulators are, the larger companies are, etc. But when it comes to talent, particularly when you take the tech of the fintech, I think that is where we still need to sort of create the right infrastructure, atmosphere to get enough talent, attract enough talent, because the talent is still in the cities like Bangalore, Hyderabad, Pune, and there's no reason why we can't do it in Bombay. But I think it all comes down to maybe cost of living, just the sort of, the way we are sort of the central business district and we need to move away. I think COVID is a great catalyst, and I think it's going to change a lot of things. We can already see it happening. But I do think we are still the seat of a lot of the fintechs that we've seen coming up, including Lakshmi. So I'm very, very positive, and I hope that we are able to create the right infrastructure.
Great. You were talking COVID. I want to come back and talk about the impact that the pandemic has had on the fintech space. But I want to give Navin the chance to have the opening remarks as well. Would you agree, disagree with any comments that Priti has made, but also just give us your perspective in terms of how fast perhaps you see Mumbai moving?
Thank you, Priti. Thank you, Sunanda. So let's look at traditionally, when you look at the financial centers globally, there was not a single country so far, so many years, despite Mumbai or India being one of the largest financial center capital. India never figured out in the entire index. Just come in last 5 to 7 years. There is a report I will again refer, you guys can look up on the internet. It's called Findexable Index for Fintechs. That report brings out 2 interesting data, or rather 3. First one talks about that there are 3 cities across the globe. When it comes to global fintech hubs from India, these 3 cities are ranked amongst top 25, not even top 50. That never happened before when we had everything. And by the way, Mumbai is very much there. Of course, number 1 is Bangalore, and Mumbai is second. Initially, the gap between Bangalore and Mumbai was a lot bigger. It's actually continuously getting bridged. Third city actually is Delhi NCR if you combine. And actually, they are even moving faster. So it's very interesting. Also, if you look at the ranking of the countries on the entire world, India is already ranked 15th. And they have a section called Who's Waging the War Amongst the Traditional Financial Services. India is right at the top, number 1. So this is some quick statistics that actually is changing. When it comes to Mumbai, yes, I agree with Priti that the resources have always been a challenge. But actually, COVID has become catalyst to sift the culture more than the resource. I think companies and fintechs here are getting comfortable, people to work wherever they are, whether they are in Bangalore, Hyderabad, Rajasthan, Jodhpur, our hometown probably, anywhere. I think that is changing in the companies as much, and that is probably becoming a catalyst to even overcome these issues.
Okay. Mr. Thakur, you of course have the bird's eye view, if I can call it that, when it comes to what's really going on in the financial space. You, of course, you're very personally invested also in the startup that you've set up at the BSE itself. But sitting where you are you happy with the pace at which things are moving when it comes to innovation in fintech?
See, I think that a lot of disruptions, innovations, etc. is happening in the fintech space. You know, you can say that Bangalore is the first fintech city or Delhi is the first fintech city. But I think people forget about the stock exchanges. You know, we have gone online around 25 years back. If today you see the BSE market capitalization, we are among the 5 largest market capitalization in the world. And if you see all the transactions which are taking place, it's totally online. So it's already BSE, NSE, they are all fintech companies. Even if you see depositories or payment gateways, etc., that banks are adopting or other companies are adopting, that is also fintech space itself. Okay. Now the thing is that, you know, because we want to term the things as a startup, so that's why we are linking it to the fintech space. And then we are categorizing that this state has got largest fintech or other states have got largest fintech. But I think as far as Maharashtra or Mumbai is concerned, not only its financial hub, but it has already created a huge fintech eco-culture in the country where large part of transactions are happening through the systems, online transactions, etc. Now, the second thing that why there is so much evolution or innovation in the fintech space. It has started from the year 2015 when the country talked about digital India. Then in 2016, we have seen demonetization. And after that, it has taken a pace when we have moved to the cashless economy. And we have seen that, you know, Paytm taking place, Mobilink coming, or you have seen the insurance policy or card trade, etc. All those things started taking place. Then it has come COVID, and other, you know, fintech companies also started coming into, and then we have seen microfinance company started converting themselves into fintech. So fintech is nothing but bringing the technology and insight and reaching to the last mile to provide the finance in a very smooth way with customers' delight, and where they can get funds at the right point of time and in a very easy way. So I think all these things are happening. You know, if you see in 2020, we were, in fact, the fintech space was valued at 2.5 trillion rupees. It is being, perceived that by 2025, it will go to 8.5 trillion rupees. And in this, we are not taking into the consideration the valuation of BSE, NSE, CDSL, and NSTL. Okay, so if you take all those things into consideration, I think we will be the largest fintech ecosystem in the world. Okay, and not only that, I think, you know, many of these things are linking. Now, one thing I forgot to tell you, for example, BSE has got largest mutual fund platform. Again, it's a fintech company. So I think lot of things have started happening. All other companies have also started bringing all those things. And I am quite it's possible that the way the adoption rate in India is, which is almost 87%, globally it is 64%. Yeah. So people are adapting to this fintech culture in the country, and with the penetration of internet and mobile, I think it is going to move fast.
I'm going to skip a short break. More when we come back to stay tuned. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. Tonight, highlights of panel discussion that we did in Mumbai as part of our Leaders of Tomorrow Town Hall series. This panel, in fact, represents that juxtaposition or the intersection between financial and what's happening in the fintech space. Mr. Thakur, to pick up on what you were saying, Navin, you were also speaking about ranking of countries globally. I was just looking at data that shows that despite the pandemic in 2020, India topped the APAC investments in the fintech space. This is, of course, despite the pandemic, in fact, coming in at almost double China. What would you attribute this, if I can call it enthusiasm really? Is India, doing so well? And that'll perhaps then bring me to my next point of financial inclusion. But what is leading to this exuberance?
So I think two things. One, of course, there has been 8 unicorns, now became 16 just in a matter of 1 year. And probably every day you have a few new announcements. And the value creation has been extremely high. Ajay has already said. One important point he mentioned, which actually was said by FM in one of the conference we did, this adoption rate. This is actually highest in the globe. There's nowhere else you see this kind of adoption rate. The next best rate is in 50s. So you have this is an amazing trend that itself says a lot. Now, why this is changing rapidly? As already Ajay said, that there has been a unique proposition in India of building digital India. And that started actually right from year 2000. We built a digital identity layer. I think all those things that happened in isolation, they are now coming together to create a clearer picture. We launched NPCI as an entity to look at cashless system. They came up with IMPS, India's equivalent of fast payment, which actually others are still catching up with. Then you launched UPI on top of that. Then you now adding a data layer with the account aggregator. So the pillars that you're building for an ecosystem to create scale. And I talk it in many forums between my own experience. I've been first 2-decade entrepreneurs in a fintech. It took us probably 15 to 20 years to create value that you're seeing today. Even for companies like Paytm, it took about 12 to 15 years. You're seeing today's companies, because of these infrastructure layer, they're able to create that scale and a value in less than 5 years. And last point on a consumer, this is all happening on an adoption rate of a consumer, why that has changed. I think what created was a trailer during demon time for the customer as a flavor. But at some extent, it went away after, let's say, it became like everything as usual. The moment COVID came, today if you look at digital payments for an example, nobody would have thought a 10 rupee or a 20 rupee bread transaction by a housewife who doesn't know tech will actually pay through a digital means or would buy insurance through that. That is changing, and the more consistent day-to-day transactions happening through digital platform is creating that growth.
In fact, and I want to bring you in on this, Mr. Thakur, the marriage, if I can call it that really, between the financial market and the fintech market. And Navin was talking about unicorns. That's obviously being enabled entirely by technology. Going forward then, what more integrations would you perhaps like to see when it comes to financial and fintech?
I think a lot of integration will happen, what you can think of. For example, payment aggregators are coming forward. Now we have heard that Paytm has also started providing broking businesses. So I think, a lot of things are going to come into the fintech space, whereby you will find that one fintech providing broking services, wealth management, insurance services, anything that you can think of, and everything will come under one umbrella.
Sure. I want to bring you in at this point, Priti. And tech innovation is what has enabled you to reach out to this very specific group of people, if I can, call it that, which wouldn't have been possible without technology, of course. As an entrepreneur, what opportunities, challenges could you run us through? Give us, a sort of a personal view, if I may ask you, when it came to using technology to reach out to women to say, take charge of your own finances.
Well, I think, Sunanda, I wouldn't have thought of doing this 5-10 years back, maybe, right? So obviously, I think all the pillars that Navin just said, that we've got now that have been created, whether it is the UPI, it's the India stack, it's just all the KYC mechanisms, etc. And then everything that other fintechs are building on top of it. I mean, today, who could have thought that seeing your face, a fintech can tell you what you should invest in, right? I'm not saying whether that is right or wrong, but today you're using tools like that, a fintech is telling you, okay, let me scan your face and understand your risk appetite. I think long way to go to prove that. But having said that, I think we have the tools now to be able to reach the last mile. I think digitization, democratization. Today, you can invest as little as 10 rupees into any financial product, right? Just the ability to do that has just increased the number of people that we can reach out to. I think beyond that, I also believe that technology is helping you hyper-personalize to the smallest of person out there, which means that, today, what we do in LXME is we can reach out to a woman in the smallest of towns, somebody who's using a payment wallet, somebody who understands, who's done digital transaction and is comfortable, has a smartphone. You can reach out to her and say, look, we can help you understand your entire spectrum of, saving your money to investing your money. Do that entire journey, and the platform will personalize it for you. Depending on what is your source of income, how much is your income, etc. And I think the personalization makes a person today, it was something that we do at Wealth. You have the next resource who's going to speak about it, an expert. But the ability to really extend that to somebody sitting far out who's never accessed financial services or financial instruments is, I think, what we have the ability to do that. You can do it for women. There are people who are doing it for teenagers. There are people, MSMEs. There are so many products that are just coming out. And I think that's the beauty of the world we live in. And that is the whole entire spectrum of opportunities that have opened up for us. I was speaking at, I was on a forum which there were, platforms which were enabling women to take up financial services from across the world. And we were talking to this bank from Bangladesh, and the lady said, look, it's very hard for us because we still have to do a physical KYC. So we need to be on location to be able to, do that KYC for a woman. That's so much of friction. And when you look back, I think there are things that we've taken for granted now in India. But I think they're the tools, that have really helped us sort of go that extra mile.
So you're saying hyper-personalize, and you're saying reaching out to women into tier 2 and tier 3 markets. I just want to pick up on that, and brings me to my next question, which is financial inclusion. Are we moving fast enough to ensuring that the unbanked are also being reached through the use of technology? You're nodding yes, so let me come to you first. Okay, you're saying we are moving fast enough.
Absolutely. I think, and there are people who are sort of working at various levels of social strata to bring in. For example, lending today has become such a common platform. You're reaching out to people who could have never imagined having a credit score. They would have never understood or had a credit card or CIBIL score, etc. But today that platform, using where are you logging in from, what instrument are you using, capturing your spending patterns, saving patterns, is able to come up with a credit score. So I think we're bringing in a lot of unbanked people. And again, I think the numbers, maybe I'll rely on Navin, but yeah, I think it's very fast. We're moving forward in that direction.
Navin, I want to give you the chance to
So yeah, my answer is yes and no, both, to be honest. Yes, in a way that, yeah, we made progress, significant progress, at the back of various policies, everything. But the reality is, other than banking, every other financial services, and maybe a little bit of payments, we have crossed 2 digits of penetration. When it comes to credit, probably about 12% of our GDP is still way behind China, which is probably 5 times more. If you look at insurance, still extremely low. It comes to informal credit, certain type of credit, again low. Wealth management increased, but still very low. So it's a mixed bag. I think we are getting there with the increase of technology, policy changes, but it still has a huge room, and that is what also reflecting in the valuations, which is also reflecting in the value creation opportunities and a growth. But good part is that in the decade, and probably especially last half decade or last 5 years, the growth that you've seen in all these sectors. If China is in an early, let's say 2 digits and a late single digit, we are actually in 3 digits of growth in most of these services. And I agree to Ajayji's earlier point that the line between fintech and our traditional financial services, especially the good ones, are continuously blurring. And I will actually add to that list because they are also the ones who are driving all of this. And this collaboration, so there was a time they were competing, that are you better than the other? Today, that's no longer the case. I think both sides understand that it is a win-win if you can find the right partnerships. Look at SBI as you know, look at SBI cards. What would you call NPCI? Would you call a financial institution? Would you call a fintech? I mean, there are so many examples today of good digital traditional entities also transforming with partnerships, and fintechs contributing to it, they're leading the way. So I think we are getting there, but there's still a gap in terms of right product fitment. Like Priti said, that the kind of audience you're talking to, they need probably different product. So we still in certain sectors need to bridge that gap, create that gap. There's still nuances within KYCs, etc. So while you could enroll the customer immediately and you could deliver the service, the challenge is your physical is not completely gone. So your cost is not reducing. And if you have to really deliver much lower cost financial services to achieve a financial services convergence, which is what we're talking about, then we need a lot more cohesive regulation like we have in IFSCA as a single regulator in GIFT City, for an example. So, that kind of a duplication is to go away.
That's all we could pack into part 1. Part 2 is coming up of this Leaders of Tomorrow Town Hall from Mumbai, talking about how Mumbai is moving from a financial to a fintech hub. What do we have lined up on part 2? Here's a sneak peek. Talking about how the model of work for most people is changing because of the pandemic and it's becoming more remote and work from home. Is that possible though in an industry like fintech, which is so data sensitive and so regulated?
I think it is. Of course, it was a challenge for the first 6 months of the, let's say, transition, because all the companies who are regulated have to follow a lot of norms about where the data can be stored, how it can be handled. A lot of entities, because of regulatory reason, does not allow you to use your private devices. So there's no bring your own device. Now they have to change to use your device. So you're absolutely right, there has been challenges, but I think this transition has given a solution. And that is what has shifted the culture, that you no longer need to be in a place where you're working.